negative. But what part of the interest in exorcism is good, and when does it go too far, do you think? Because I'm seeing a lot of it online.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, people are fascinated with the extraordinary means of the devil, or the supernatural ways he afflicts people, you know, through all the things you would probably hear about, the possession, the oppression, obsession, vexations, all the things that have all the bells and whistles and look a little scary, and people are fascinated by this. But as I tell people all the time, those things don't put you in hell necessarily. Certainly there can be an open door that allowed the demon in, and once you confess it and are forgiven, it's closed. And if you die in a state of possession, you're not going to hell, because possession means they've taken control of your body. So you no longer can control your body, what it's doing. So you're not really responsible for whatever it's doing. That's, although painful and torturous for people, it is not a highway to hell. The normal, and that's like 1% to 2%. The 98% of the devil's tactics are ordinary or natural, I say, and that is temptation. And if you give in to temptations and it's mortal in a grave manner, and you fully commit to it, then you can find yourself in hell. And that's what he really wants. And so when you tell people that, you know, that's not sexy or exciting, the temptation and sin, they don't want to hear. A lot of people don't want to hear about it because, you know, that would mean you'd have to change maybe some of your lifestyle. But that's the reality. So that's kind of where I move the focus. When I give these talks, if it's a 90-minute talk, I'll spend 10 minutes on the crazy stuff and give them that information. This isn't necessarily going to steal your place in heaven, but this can. And this is the bigger thing. You know, if Lucifer could convince a mass number of angels to leave heaven, it's not going to be so hard for him to convince the people on this planet to join him in hell. So you got to be careful the voices you're listening to.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so let's talk about this just for a little bit and then we can move on. So in some sense then, the confessional is more powerful than an exorcism.
Yes, sacraments are first line of defense. Where I live, only 3% of the state's Catholic. Yep. Tennessee is largely Baptist, so I don't have those at my disposal for most cases that I deal with.
It is, I think, a sign of hope, though, that in a day and age like ours that denies the supernatural, which itself might be a prejudicial word, that people are, again, being open to the spiritual realm. I see how that can go off the rails, but that has to be, in some sense, a good thing. Yeah. Because it does seem for a long time, even in, I mean, in my own life, I guess still I could speak to, there was just this denial of the demonic, that we were in a world at war. And I remember even as a young child thinking, maybe I'm open to believing in God, but all that stuff about hell and Satan, like I don't believe any of that. But it seems to me that if you are open to believing that we have spiritual enemies, then you're going to be open to believing that God exists and that maybe Christ was his son and things like this. So I guess it could be a back door into Christianity for some people.
Yeah, that's true. People who suffer from these sorts of the supernatural torments of the devil are very aware of God and his power, because that's what they're clinging to in hopes of being set free. And those people tend to become the most devout when they get liberated, because they know how bad it can be on the dark side, and they really don't want to ever go even near that. And so they tend to be like daily communicants and going to confession at least once a month, and they want to stay super clean so as to not have any foothold for the devil to get in. And that's probably a good thing. You know, you have to think about, why would God allow this? I have a case right now of a woman who it's been over 9 months, and we're doing the rite of exorcism every 2 weeks. And she's almost at the end, you know, and she is probably one of the most devout people in my church now, because she knows the reality of what this is, a war. And the war was set up in Genesis 3, if you want to go to the scriptures. I will put enmity between you and the woman, between her offspring and yours. So right there, that's the beginning, right? At the very beginning. And then if you go to the very end of the Bible in Revelation 12, it says, this battle broke out in heaven and Michael's warring against the angels. And then the woman clothed with the sun gets involved. And it says the devil was furious with the woman and went off to make war against her other offspring, those who keep God's commands and bear witness to Jesus Christ. Okay, so who is that? It's Christians, number one. But not all Christians. They have to be keeping God's commands.
Yeah.
So like even in the Catholic Church, if 80% of the people don't go to Sunday Mass, they're not really after those people. The Satan and his minions are after the ones who are actually true disciples that are following Jesus, living up to his standard and bearing a witness in the world to him. That's a very small number.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a badge of honor for those who are doing it, because there's nothing to fear if you're living out of that true discipleship.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Somebody who has goodwill and is trying to love and serve Jesus Christ, who's receiving the sacraments, has nothing to fear.
No.
That's nice.
And everything to gain. Yeah.
That's really good.
It is good.
Now, did it take you, because, okay, you became a priest. Obviously, you believed in the demonic and you were open to exorcism. Was there a period of time when you actually were asked to be an exorcist by the bishop that you were maybe surprised at what you saw?
Well, it was kind of a weird, this is how God works with, I think, a lot of people. Like he prepares you for the things he's going to call you to do. So when I first, I was a banker on Wall Street for my professional career up until 9/11. 9/11, I lived about 5 blocks from the Trade Center and they evacuated everything below Canal Street. So I had to leave and I wound up going up to Boston and I wound up living with a parish priest in Boston who had a deliverance ministry, among other things. And that was my introduction to this deliverance, you know. And he was very good. He always operated completely out of love for the victim and was in control and never got worked up or angry or frustrated. And he was really a great model. So that was my first glance. And then from there, went off to seminary to get the philosophy done and then eventually wound up in a religious order with a charism for the cross, but also one of the things they were doing was deliverance and exorcism because the superior of the men's community was the local exorcist for Omaha. So here is more experience now with the rite of exorcism. And then when I finally got to Nashville, the bishop that ordained me did not want an exorcist because he thought it was too heavy a role for a priest to carry along with being a pastor or an associate. So we just did deliverance ministry, and really 99% of all deliverance ministry can be done without the rite of exorcism. I mean, it's really for the most severe cases of full possession, and that's not very common. But when the new bishop came in, he kind of looked at it a little different and thought, you know, I want you to have the full power to do what you need to do. I feel like to not be doing the full exorcism could be maybe fighting with your hands tied behind your back. So go to Rome, get trained, come back, and I'll install you as an exorcist. And so that's how it happened.
You said that most kind of demonic influence doesn't need an exorcism, but can be, how then? Do we just renounce Satan?
Either the person renounces the evil they've done and goes to confession. Confession breaks demonic forces off the person.
Praise God.
The absolution.
Yeah.
So it's only in the most deep cases, and some of them, you know, for example, satanic ritual abuse of children goes very deep because it happened to a baby when they were just, you know, under a year. They don't even remember it, but they're just afflicted their whole life and don't know why. So those sort of things they're harder to get out.
How does the person who's unaware of it come to realize that's what happened?
Well, at a certain age, in the cases I've seen, the person tries to move towards God, and that angers the demon, and then they start manifesting, and then they realize that they're not like everybody else.
Gosh, that's horrific.
It is.